This is Firefighters and Fire Trucks Getting Ice Cream. I'm Jess Quinalty. Welcome back to part 2 with Ben Martin from Embrace the Resistance. We're cruising through downtown Nashville in a 1983 Mack CF 611. We just pulled up to Elliston Place, which is an old school soda fountain, so we can sit down, have some chocolate shakes, and continue to talk about leadership. Sure you've never had ice cream before?
Once or twice.
Stay tuned for part 2. All right, man. So here you go. The two best things about the fire service: ice cream and fire trucks.
It's
so
a natural fit.
it works out so well, you know. I really love coming to these old just soda fountain places, and you know, you get to just see all these cool things around the country. You know, this show has just been bringing us to not only cool fire engines, but just really cool ice cream shops.
Yeah, that's cool. One of these days you'll have to do a story about why ice cream is such a big deal in the fire service. Where'd that start from?
Right. I always love it when they give you the shake and the tin. Like the shake in the cup's not enough.
Yeah, no kidding. It's like 2 milkshakes.
Oh.
Make sure I don't set this in the way of the camera.
Nah, you're fine. So we were talking on the way in, right? So you got the intoxicated leadership class that you're doing out there at conferences, and then what's your other one that you're doing out there? Or you got 2 other ones you're doing?
Yeah, so the 2 that I do less frequently, but I enjoy doing as much. The first one's about culture, so it's called Where We Come From, Preserving and Influencing Fire Service Culture. And one of the things I had noticed in teaching this, which one, it's not a sexy topic, nobody wants to talk about culture, but
right.
2, it's really
Everybody
important.
wants to talk about culture in the firehouse.
yeah, right? Well, so when you come in as a new leader, you know, and you've got folks that have either been on for a while or not, it's like, how do you engage the older folks while also engaging the people that need different career development?
Right.
And then I noticed a trend where, you know, some stations would train till 1 a.m. in the morning and skip meals to do it, and the others, you couldn't motivate them to train an hour a day, and
right.
they wouldn't even take their gear off the racks or check out the rigs or that stuff. And it's like, how, you know, 2 miles away from each other, how does such a different culture exist? Or even at the same firehouse, where one shift is driving all the changes and stuff. And, you know, I didn't want to be the type of leader that came in and just changed everything without input from people. And I think you see that a lot of times. And so when you look at people that have got 20, 23, 25, 30 years on, and they're angry at the organization because they don't feel valued, that's a culture piece. Right? And so why would you spend that much time and money investing in their careers only to not value them when
right.
it matters most?
Well, the weird thing is that, you know, we talk about leadership and the times to lead when it's really hard is when you have that demotivation going on.
Right.
Whether it's politically, culturally, financially, or whatever.
Yeah.
My fire department, we were going through some financial stuff there for a while when I was with a smaller organization. And 2-station department, but financially we had a couple of injuries that year, a lot of overtime, and the budget was getting really, really tight. Almost to the end of the budget year. Mm-hmm. And our fire chief comes to us and he says, I can't even believe I'm asking for this, but for the next 2 months, we're like out of money. I had to move money around. We're like out of money. Can you guys all bring in some toilet paper, some dish soap, some laundry soap, just to get us through the last of this budget year? And of course, at that time, everybody was like, of course, chief,
yeah.
We totally understand. You know, for him to even come to us and say, hey, I need help here, you know. Of course, we're all like, yeah, chief, not a problem. 2 months later, the new budget comes in, money magically appears in the bank again, and now we're buying new tools and all kinds of stuff. And the next week, the conversation around the kitchen table is like, can you believe the fire chief asked me to bring in toilet paper? And for 2 months, we were using Charmin instead of, you know, the sandpaper we get from the janitorial company. But it's during those times when you're going through that financial stuff. And we have to recognize, like, when I go to work at the fire station every day, if there's a roll of toilet paper in the stall, that doesn't motivate me to be a good firefighter. But if that toilet paper is not on that roll, that will obviously demotivate me.
Yeah, it's amazing what we'll complain about.
And leadership during those times, it's easy to be a leader when times are good.
Yeah.
Being a leader when it's not going well, that's a totally different thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so in this class, I mean, we talk about that concept, like what do you do? How do you lead when things aren't going well? But we also talk about all the changes that the fire service is facing. So what I've noticed is there's like this pool of credibility. And if I take some, that means you can't have any. Where did that come from? Why is it if I have a college degree and you're a welder, that one's more valuable than the other? And why are they not equally valuable? And unfortunately, I think you're seeing this tension, whether you're a slicer's camp or a RCOVS, or whether you're college degree or whether you're trade skills, or whether you have previous experience or none. You're a baby boomer or a millennial. Like, sorting through that and figuring out how to make all those people work. Like, I had one shift where I had a 19-year-old kid, and the range of age was 67 was the oldest person on our team. So you better believe what those two individuals needed, not just in terms of where they were in their career, but where they were in their life, was much, much different. And I always joke about counterculture, right? So if you've ever come to work and you get the notice that somebody marked off sick, and you're like, yes, right? That's a guy that's not on board. That's a guy that's counterculture. Or whose turn is it to transfer? Such and such is. Yes, like, and sometimes you'll have somebody that's not there that'll let somebody else be on board, but as soon as they pair back up with that individual, they just set anchor to your shop. And so it's about navigating all that. That's all it is. It's just, what's important, what's not, and when do you usher in change and when do you fight it, and it's not a perfect class, it's not a science to anything, but it is very much, and it's almost kind of led us to the intoxicated leadership piece of like, all right, well, when you're in that period of low morale, how do you survive that? So that's the one class. And the other class that we do is Leadership and Learning in Today's Fire Service. So I spent 2 years in our training section, worked with over 100 recruits across 4 different academies. And I was blown away about what I thought I knew about teaching and what I didn't. And so with that class, we focus on getting rid of the ego of the instructor, and we focus on creating a learning environment. And so we talk about the factors that subconsciously hijack us. Like I was joking with you about driving here. Like mentally, your consciousness is focused on where am I in relation to where I need to be? How's my time? Are we having an informative conversation? Is anybody going to see any value in this? Like all these things. Plus, you're probably thinking about getting the fire truck back and
double
your plans
clutching
for later today. I mean, you're thinking about so many other things, and that's hugely taxing on your brain power. So if I was trying to actually teach you something while you were doing that, I would not expect you to retain a lot of that information. But it's no different.
I didn't hear anything you said on the way here.
Right. You have to listen to this back. But it's the same thing when you're teaching a class. It's the same exact thing. Like when we did the Intoxicated Leadership class today, I told you about how somebody came up and talked about their marriage failing. I know for a fact that at some point in that class, she was there, not listening to what I was saying, but totally thinking about where she was. And so the goal is, as instructors, do you get them to set aside those distractions, focus on what you're saying, and what is it as an instructor that you could do that could actually antagonize that and make it worse? And I don't know about the academy or how you came in, but I had an instructor that was nose to nose, or he was shorter, nose to chest, like openly berating me to the point that I wanted to hit him. And that obviously was a very bad day. And 16 years later, we still don't talk. Like he lost the chance to have any kind of influence on my career. And yet I use his example as a very strong model of what not to do moving forward. And so I think about, if you have a department that has that kind of academy, like that's a good class for you. Because without any kind of formal, we don't do a lot of formal instructor training. We might have like an instructor 1 or 2 class where we teach you how to put together a lesson plan. But we're not teaching you how to actually engage folks. We're just teaching you how to plan a class and execute it, and that's all it is. So those are those two that we talk about.
And you can't start off the learning process with disrespectful communication. They're going to shut down, like you're talking about. Those academy instructors are literally, they're the beginning of the influence of your career. The new class that Bobby Drake's putting together right now is literally, you're the first step as an academy instructor or instructor in the fire service. You literally are the first face that the fire department sees.
It's one of the most important roles in the fire service, bar none. Because your job is to get rid of the people that don't need to be there, but support the ones that maybe are struggling but should be there. And there's a blend of hiring people with the right values and mindset, and then hiring people with the right experience, and hiring the blend of both. And that's the point of impact. So, and the second most important probably is then when they transition to the actual station. Because it was really frustrating to run a 7.5-month academy and then have them completely loving the fire service, and they get there and there's that 10-year guy, or sometimes I've seen it as young as 3 years. They're like, hey, ignore everything they just taught you. Like, I'll show you the real way to do stuff. Or it's not all rainbows. And I get it. There's going to come a time where we all don't enjoy pulling up our bunker pants and putting our suspenders on for that fire alarm or that whatever call.
Right.
But I don't want to rush that for anybody. You know, and when they get there, I want to have the skill set to help them through it. And I want to keep myself out of that too.
Well, there's nothing like letting the complacency of not putting those bunker pants on prove you wrong that day when you actually pull up and you actually have a real working fire.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's like we've been on those ring alarms plenty of times where I know this place, it's never on fire.
Yeah.
And so now you're teaching at conferences, and then you decide that you want to start your own.
Yeah, I think it's glutton for punishment is what it's called.
I tried to warn you, but yeah. So how did that come about?
So I was, so it's certainly nothing novel. I mean, you're seeing this all over the United States, these small conferences popping up, which I love. Personally, I love going to them. Andy Frederick's Training Days.
Right.
I'm good friends with a couple of the guys that run it, and they have been fantastic in loaning me their experience about how they run their event to try to do ours.
Right.
And so when I started traveling and noticing the expense of sending just one person, I really got it in my mind that, I felt like my organization was large enough that we could host it. I felt like we had talented people enough that could present at it. And so I thought it was a no-brainer. Not a no-brainer at all. Right? You talking about embracing the resistance? Like, nah, we're not interested in that. Okay. Are you saying I can't do it? No, I'm not saying you can't do it. We're just not interested in helping. Okay. Right. So all I got to find is a merry band of misfits that are equally as engaged, and I did. I've got a group of like 15 guys that travel from all over the East Coast to come help host this thing. And the first year was hugely successful. I mean, and when you've got like a guy like David Rhodes opening up a leadership thing, it's just like flooring. And all I did was invite the people I wanted to see. So, Rick George and Dennis Laguerre and Andy Starnes, and Jonah Smith. I was a kid in a candy store.
Oh, yeah.
And the feedback was so good. I was like, we should do this every year. So I actually paid for the first one, and I didn't make enough through registrations because the other part of it was we wanted it to be as affordable as possible. So, the most registration is $150 for all 3 days, and we provide lunch all 3 days. The cheapest is $30. Like if you're on the website on the email list, getting that notification, 25 spots every year we open up, $30 for this thing, no matter where you're coming from. So I joked that I lost a vacation fund. And then the second year, get a little bit better, get a little bit more sponsors on board, try to cut costs while still preserving the value of it. A few more volunteers here and there. And then I lose a car payment. And so the goal this year is not to lose any money. But even if I did, like I always joke to my wife, and she's on board with it, as long as we're losing less than what it would cost me to go to FDIC, then I figure it's a trip, well worth it. So it's been really cool to see people from all over the East Coast come. I mean, we even had people from Canada last year come. And then it's just something different about our event where we've got this beautiful restored venue, which you can see pictures of on the website. And even though we've got this great stage, nobody uses it. Everybody walks amongst the students up and down the road, and they're just on the floor, and they're accessible. Like, if you want to talk to Dennis Laguerre, Dennis will talk to you for as long as you want. And that's kind of what we got going on this year. And I think this year is going to be just as good. We invited Nick Martin back. We got Steve Robertson coming for an engine company class from Columbus. We've got a guy named John Burris who's retired 30 years, one of like the leading authorities on air operations, doing an aggressive aerial class, amongst other guys. I mean, just really, really good lineup. So I'm very excited about it.
Well, I think that year that I met you, it was right after I just did that learning from leaders stuff at Red Helmet Training, and a big name every month for the entire year. And we didn't break even on that anywhere close, but and just to see Dave Dotson and John Mittendorf and Brunacini, Castros over an entire year, but when you really get to the point where there's 23 people in the class or 24 people to see Bruno, it got to the point where it just drove me nuts. And as much as I did it because I want, like you said, there's people I want to see, I'll bring them to me. Why do I need to go to a conference? I'll bring them to me. But when it came down to, it's like all these people that are missing out on hanging out with Brunacini and with Mittendorf, and now it's part of the catalyst of this show. Like, okay, I'll bring them into your living room or on your computer or whatever. I will make sure that I hook up with Mittendorf one of these days before this show is over and he passes, so that you don't miss out on that knowledge that's around.
Yeah, I missed a chance to see Bernasini about an hour south of me.
Yeah.
And then 3 months later, he's dead. And I was just kicking myself so much, so much that I'll never have the opportunity to see that. So, yeah, I love it. Anytime you can record stuff and just bring it to people, because not everybody's got the time or the home life situation or the money to be able to go out and do this stuff. So, anytime you can bring it in and do it, you know, and for us, it was about being as affordable as possible so that anybody could come. And we'll do scholarships. I mean, we give away registrations right and left, which is one of the reasons we lose money. But we don't, I've never allowed someone to say, I wish I could come, but. Like, all right, well, what is the but? And we'll work that out.
Right.
You know, and Kyle Romagus from Engine Company Reservations, for example, like he paid for a guy to fly out from Texas last year and did a raffle, and like he absorbed that hit because that's what he's passionate about, and he does it all over the country to other conferences. So it's really, really cool. I have the ability to do that. So.
Well, I'm glad you're out there doing it, you know, and I'll keep recording as I go to different conferences, and I'll cross paths with you again, and yeah, we'll just keep doing what we can as much as we can.
That's all you can do.
Ben,
awesome.
Good hanging out
Jesse.
with you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming out to get some ice cream.
All right.
Cool.
You ever hear the Jeff Shute tell his story about a FDIC hot class about a student that was struggling? So this, I always keep this in the back of my mind, and you know, you should too, I think. He tells me about how he was teaching an FDIC hot class, I don't know, like 2004-ish, 2005-ish, somewhere in there. And there's a student in there that's struggling. And this guy, the student, now tells this story. But the instructors come up to Jeff and they're like, hey man, like this kid's not getting it with 2.5, like we've tried, he's got questions, can you go talk and work with him? So Jeff's like, sure. So Jeff goes over there and spends the bulk of his time working with this kid. And so he's just, so obviously the student gets it and he's pretty humbled and grateful. You know, he's telling me this story in 2018 and I'm like, so who was the student? And he goes, well, that's the thing, Ben, that's the kicker. He goes, 3 years later, I get a phone call from, he names somebody big, and he's like, this kid out of Seattle really wants to get in touch with you. Do you mind if he calls you? Give him your phone number. And he says, sure.
It's Aaron Field.
And I'm thinking, if Jeff hadn't taken the time, you know, what would Aaron have done with that? How would we be different? And it just takes one.
Right.
It only takes your whole career to reach one person to have done a good job. That's all. That's all it takes.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it blows my mind. And Aaron tells that story too. That's how I know it's true.